Have you ever heard of the streetlight effect? This is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned from working with people who are very successful. They make a ton of money. They have a top 0.1% company in their industry. They make millions and gazillions of dollars. And they tell me their most intimate problems that they normally would never share publicly. And it's essentially the idea that we have certain blind spots that we simply cannot see. So what's the streetlight effect? The streetlight effect is this idea that there's this policeman who helps a drunk guy who lost his keys. And the drunk guy is looking underneath this street lamp, and it's in the dark. The drunk guy is looking underneath the street lamp where the light is shining. And the policeman asks him, "Is this where you lost your keys?" And the drunk guy says, "No, I lost them in the dark, but this is where I can see. So we're more likely to find it." And it's essentially an observational bias where people search for where it is easiest to look. We essentially double down on the thing that we're already doing. And we're convinced that it must be somewhere here, but it's actually somewhere completely else. Usually somewhere where we don't want to look, or where we're just least familiar with it. So if the keys are outside of the light, you have to leave where you can see. It's a funny thing that I notice on calls all the time when I work with an entrepreneur. So for context, if you don't know what I do, I work with entrepreneurs who are crushing it on the outside, but something's missing. They just don't enjoy it as much. They make millions of dollars, but they just don't feel fulfilled, or they feel stuck in some sort of way. And this is what happens on pretty much every call. They come on with some technical, strategic, tactical problem where they just know, okay, I just need to figure out this little piece of the puzzle, and then I'll get the result that I want. And it takes about 10 to 20 minutes of going deeper with them and challenging them on a few things for them to notice that it actually doesn't have to do with anything right here, right? Anything that is tactical, strategic, and it's all something that is underneath. And so that's essentially the work that I do with them, which is getting them to see the blind spot that by definition they don't see. And usually it comes down to something that is internal, that doesn't just show up in their business, but it also shows up in all other areas of their life. So for example, you may have some entrepreneur who feels stuck because there's something wrong with the team, or there's something wrong with a business partner, or maybe there's even something wrong in their personal relationship. But when we get down to it, actually everything is in place. They have everything they need, but they're simply afraid of making the decision because internally they have some sort of nice guy pattern, or nice guy syndrome, right? Where they just think, oh man, if I do this, then people will judge me, or the people that I care about, they will feel betrayed, or they're going to think differently of me. They were truly convinced that the problem initially was, well, we need to find the right person with the right qualifications, and it's just really complicated, and we need to figure it out, right? And they're essentially just searching under this street light where they're comfortable, right? They're comfortable looking here because this seems familiar. They've intellectualized it. And when it comes down to it, they're really just afraid. They're just afraid. And what we notice is that this pattern shows up everywhere in their life. And it's actually oftentimes one of the biggest limiters in different areas of their life too, right? If they're a nice guy, if they're afraid of what other people will think, or if they're afraid of judgment in their business, then the same thing happens in their marriage, right? And so the wife is also losing respect because he's not making decisions, he's not leading, he's not taking charge, right? And then the same thing happens in their family life or in their friendships, right? Where they're conflict avoidant and they sweep things under the rug and they just let relationships fizzle out instead of just bringing things up because they're worried that it's going to go wrong. Or I'm working with someone who always feels like, I'm not where I want to be. I want to get over there, and I just need to get ready. I'm just not ready yet. A few things need to be in place for me to take the business to where I want it to be, to focus on the things that I enjoy. And also when it comes to dating, I don't feel ready yet. I first need to be in this point in my life for me to put myself out there so I can actually be good enough to find that person. And so when they come in, they don't actually have this awareness yet that they just don't feel good enough yet to put themselves out there to date or to really enjoy their life. They feel like a sense of guilt or a sense of fear that if I enjoy my life too much, then I may slow down and then I lose everything, and I shouldn't. It doesn't feel safe, right? But on the outside, it's a strategic or tactical problem where it's just like, how do I go about this in my business? And what's the right strategy here? And we always need to go a layer deeper, right? We always need to go outside of the street lamp light where it's most unfamiliar and it feels out of their element. It's not what they're usually ruminating on. But the thing that they're ruminating on is usually just this top layer, this almost like made up intellectualization of their mind to distract them from the darkness where the keys actually are. And not just the keys to the problem that they have top of mind, but the keys to problems that show up in different areas of their life, because again, it affects multiple areas. And this is why it's really difficult for people who are very ambitious and high achievers and also very intelligent, because they are so good at intellectualizing their problems and make them sound better than they are. So here's what I mean. When I challenge them about their fear, it takes a lot of persuasion on my end, which I'm good at. I'm good at persuading people and getting them to see different perspectives, for them to see that it truly is driven by fear, or sometimes victimhood, or sometimes fear, or sometimes even victimhood, because they just assume that that's not them. That's for beginners. That's for, people in their life who they know who never take charge of anything and they never do anything, right? But taking ownership of something is a continuum, right? So you might have someone who takes full ownership for their body and their health, right? But when it comes to their career, they're just like, the industry is just kind of tough. And yeah, I know it's up to me. I know it's my responsibility to make it work, but it is really tough. That is actually a lower level of ownership, a lower level of responsibility. So it's a continuum, right? It's not are you responsible or not? It's how responsible or how much ownership do you take? And so in different areas, we take different levels of ownership depending on how comfortable or how capable we feel, right? And so you have these entrepreneurs who are crushing it. They make millions of dollars, but when it comes to dating, they just feel like, oh man, dating's kind of tough. It's just not the right time. And I don't know if It's like, there's a sense of victimhood in that, or a sense of lack of responsibility or ownership, or this is outside of my control. Not fully, because logically they still know, oh no, I know that it's up to me, but the story is still running. And so what I noticed is when I point it out, what usually happens is that they first deny it. So when I'm challenging someone on, let's say for example, there's an entrepreneur who kind of operates like very reactive, right? And so they're very they're running around like a chicken with its head cut off, just like taking action left and right. And when I challenge them on, hey, that's based on fear. You're afraid of losing control. It's like, no, I'm not afraid. I'm just stressed. It's just I just want to succeed. And so actually that is fear. You're afraid of losing control. You're afraid of failing. You're afraid of things going wrong. And they're like, yeah, I guess you could say that, but that's actually what it is at its core. And so the logical reason of, oh well, I just don't know if it's the right time for me to start dating because, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of intentionality. It's like, that's an assumption. And also you're afraid of putting yourself out there and wasting your time, and you don't believe that you'll find someone easily and effortlessly and naturally. And their mind is so sophisticated and good at putting a really good problem on it that like brings it back into the streetlight. So the point of this idea that I want to share with you here is that we don't have relationship problems or business bottlenecks or even health problems or any strategy problems. It's always you could say character problem. It's always an internal challenge or a blind spot or something there, or something where we don't want to look, where we rationalize, where we sweep things under the rug, where we resist something, where we're afraid of something. And that's the thing that creates these external problems. It's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine. His business is doing well, but there are a lot of problems, and a lot of problems with operations. There's tons of fires, and there's a big mess in the business. And he's convinced that he just needs to find someone who can fix that mess. He needs an operator, he needs someone who's super organized and can just go in and fix it. But when I look at him, I can clearly see you're the problem. Because you create all these fires, and if you just increased your ability a little bit and you change your approach a little bit, and your reactivity and your fear of losing control and your fear of releasing control and actually delegating to someone, you wouldn't have this problem because you actually already had someone on your team. But remember that you fired them because you didn't think they were working on the right things, because they're doing things differently than you, and so you just let them go. He doesn't see that. He's just looking under the streetlight in the dark, because outside of it, it's dark and he's out of his element and he doesn't know, he can't see, right? And so this is the challenge with blind spots. Either you don't see them because they're blind spots, or you kind of know they're there, but you're resisting them and you're not wanting to look there. So, hope this is valuable. If you'd like to actually work with me and dive deeper into this and figuring out, okay, what is my biggest limiter? What is my blind spot? I'm running a live workshop with only about a dozen people to go really deep in defining, okay, what is your biggest limiter and how can you overcome it to create the next level of results in your business, in your personal life, in your relationships, and in your sense of aliveness as well, because they're all connected. So check it out below. There's a link below. Click it if you're interested, and I'll see you in the next video.